to chop it down.
Right.
So it does start back to that spiritual component, those metaphysics and everything, with dealing at the root to why a lot of our people do what they do.
No, you're so right.
Mm-hmm. So, but on that note, let's go back to like with these the free trade agreements. So, would this mean that when you may have a lot of brothers, for example, that may be trying to get like construction jobs, manufacturing jobs, and things of that nature, and they're pretty much like pushed up out of the loop because a lot of those jobs are being transferred over to others. And even though in the media, the smokescreen may be, oh, all of these illegals are coming over here, blah, 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 but in true essence, what's underlying with this is the whole essence of having these trade agreements in place, or I guess we could also say, what, restitution agreements.
Restitution
in the case of what you had painted with Korea.
Right. Korea, the Vietnamese, you have the Gulf War in the 80s. These Arabs are coming over here. They're coming over here as recompensation for what happened to them, what the United States did to them. United States went over there and tore those people up. And you have the soldiers you see on the ground out on the street now. Those are the war vets from Desert Storm. The Vietnam vets are still out there, but they're a little bit older. So you look at your military. Go to the VA hospitals and check these brothers out and ask them what's happened to them. And so when they go in those wars, those people, okay, well, you divided our country between North and South Korea. Let 100,000 come a year for 30 years. Let's say, I don't know if that's how it is, but those are the exact numbers, but that's how it is. If you let us come set up McDonald's, if you let us come set up McDonald's and Coca-Cola in your country, we'll give special envoys and visas and stuff to so many people or so many workers. These are the reparations that these people work out, and so they're allowed to come over here. Now they're not allowed in exclusive white neighborhoods. You see Asian food, Thai food. Excuse me. That train is killing. Sorry. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, you would say that you don't see them in European neighborhoods.
You don't. As the debt grows, you're starting to see them now. You're starting to see Thai food restaurants in European neighborhoods because the U.S. is in debt to China. And that's where these free trade agreements are going to come in and kill the economy over here. Because if they bring their workers with them, their workers are going to work for cheap. It's kind of like we hit the same thing in the 60s. When the Civil Rights Bill was passed, it was passed on contingent that an immigration bill was being passed along with it.
Oh, wait, I wasn't aware of that, so I want to make sure I'm following you. You were saying that the Civil Rights Bill was passed on the contingency that the immigration bill, and what did that immigration bill entail?
The immigration bill allowed it for the Cubans to come up. You remember, whenever these bills are going, look and see what's happening in history around the world. The Cubans came up. The Haitians were allowed to come up. A lot of the Caribbean nations, the floodgates came open. You have a lot of Jamaican and a lot of those people from the Caribbean were allowed to come up and become a part of America. They became a part of the fabric of America.
And that was like in the 60s.
Yeah, that was the immigration bill.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So when those people came in, they took advantage of the things that you were fighting for. That's a very important time in history. Very important time in history. You have to pay attention to that part of time in history. So then you had that immigration bill. Then you had NAFTA. the NAFTA free trade agreement. So you had, down in Mexico, you had all these farmers. So now Monsanto tells the Mexican government, we want to grow this genetically modified food, and it killed the farming industry in Mexico, right? So all the Mexicans that lost their jobs, they just came north to do what they did there. A lot of them were working in the fields up here in Central California. You know, they do a lot of they do a lot of outside work, because that's the kind of, they come from like a forest area in Mexico.
You highlight a very important point here. So when you speak about Monsanto and the genetically modified foods, are you saying that them introducing that pretty much created a situation where if the farmers were used to just collecting seeds and replanting based on that Monsanto pretty much came in and monopolized all of that, so that they had to keep on going to get their seeds and everything from them?
And but more than that, it forbids the people from eating the food that the earth provides. Does that make sense? So you're supposed to be, if you're a part of the planet, you are supposed to eat from the vine of what grows on this planet.
Right.
So a company comes in and says, later for that, we're gonna do it like this. And that's what they did. Now, if you look around, a lot of the countries are kicking Monsanto out because they are understanding this country's with it. And you know, we eat a lot in this country. We eat a lot of genetically modified organisms, a lot, because the food in these stores. Look at all the food. It's always shiny. It's always full. How is that possible? How are they growing these animals this fast? How is this happening? People are eating 24 hours. They got fast food restaurants open 24 hours a day. Where's this food coming from? And we as some of the biggest consumers the world has ever seen, we just go along right with it. And you see what it's doing to us.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes.
So, that's what I mean. We have to start producing our own food. We have to, because you don't know what we're getting. I asked the sister, check this out. I asked the sister up in at one of the biggest hospitals in the Southeast. She was over the Women and Infant Center. And I asked her, I said, what percentage of Indigenous females breastfeed at your hospital? She was like, what? What percentage black females breastfeed at your hospital? She said, I'll get it for you. She got it for me. 10%, less than 10% of black females breastfeed.
So-called black females.
So-called black females. So-called African American females. I said indigenous first, but I want to hook it in. Indigenous people. What percentage of those ladies breastfeed? She came back and said less than 10%. I said, so 90% of our babies are on Similac. She was like, yeah. I said, what percentage of European females, what percentage of them breastfeed? 90%. And I asked her, why is that? She's gotten it changed. She's gotten it the numbers up. She's gotten in all the hospitals in the Southeast. She's bringing those numbers up, and she's like, wow. So we're just trained from infancy to eat that genetically modified Similac, a powder you mix with water. This is what we feed our children. This is what we're trained to feed our children. So right away, they're disconnected. They're not getting anything that comes from the earth. They're getting something that people made up in a laboratory. And so our children, they're in an artificial environment because we have set up nothing for them. We're not building our own cities. These cities are wearing us out. These cities are wearing us out. But now they're bringing in some new, fresh workers. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to start building a way of life that's conducive for life for us, that gives us life, instead of we just working our butts off trying to build somebody else's empire. We can no longer continue to do that. I don't think it's a good idea.
So in other words, it really pretty much is about going back to what Grandma and Grandpa and them did.
You better.
They had a home. No mortgage. Bills, a few here and there. May at most be spending maybe $200 or $300 a month, a little higher in some cases. They may have went to the grocery store here and there, but they had a very large garden every year, which dramatically, reduced their food bills because most of the food was either frozen, they would package it, pre-cook it,
right.
and then do the canned goods,
right.
fix that preserve, those peach preserves, apple preserves, even
right.
doing the pickling on the peppers, making homemade hot sauces and things of that nature, and making that cha-cha, which would be what they call kimchi in Korea, with that pepper cabbage with the peppers and seasonings and stuff like that. So it's just about going back to the tradition.
Exactly, and all those products you name, the cool part about it is that the people produced the food to make those products.
Right, exactly.
You grew the food. A lot of people don't realize that the so-called African American, the so-called black female, she is the original cultivator of cotton over here in America. That's something that she cultivated. The Europeans just came over and tricked us out of it. That's all. So it's like you were saying earlier. If you look at what the indigenous women of America, the clothes they wore, off the hook. The clothes the brothers made, how they made their clothes using the environment around them. They used the animals. Yeah, they used the trees. Yeah, they used the rocks and the minerals because they were living with the earth. They were giving back to the earth. They just didn't take, they gave back. They planted trees. They built monuments. They conversed with the animals for real. They converse with the insects. We're scared of these things. We have become so disconnected from the planet. That's the main reason why you see our communities in the way they are. We're disconnected.
Speaking about being disconnected and how they were connected, have you heard anything about Dr. Jewel Pookrum and her book that was supposed to be titled Conversing with the Sequoia Tree?
No, I'm not. I'm aware of Dr. Jewel Pookrum, and why we have this up. How come we don't have universities or schools that brothers built where that sister is the president of the school putting out information? Why? I mean, in this day and time, why aren't we thinking of that? Why aren't the masses? Why aren't we thinking of how we're going to give our people the quality information so we can remain a viable force on this planet? Why aren't we summing up seriously? It's just the same thing over and over and over again, and it's getting to the point now. And I'm talking about, this is a lot of cities in the South, especially. You are being invaded by foreigners. And I know everybody sees it. What is that about? I mean, I was in Memphis recently, and a dude from Africa told a brother from Memphis, "Man, I'll come from behind this counter," and just totally disrespected them. Now, do we go into other people's country and do that to them? Yes, we did.